Hi there, we're back again. Today we're looking at doing this painting of a sea scene, little boat with some lovely vibrant colours into the background here and some cling film on the foreground to get the effect of the waves. The full instruction sheet are here for you to download and a little cheat sheet as well, so let's get going. Okay, right. So we're going to do this little picture with some boats and a bit of sea and a bit of sky and things into the background. The main reason I'm doing a boat picture is to allow me to use lots and lots of colours for a sea scene, really, to make it a bit more exciting. But anyway, so we're going to work around this boat and putting lots of different colours into this and just having a bit of fun with it. And we're going to use a bit of cling film on the front to make it look a little bit more like sea. So if you are going to use cling film to give the effect of these waves on here, make sure you get your cling film ready and it's big enough to cover the area that you want. And make sure that you're going to crinkle it up a little bit like this when you're going to put it on there to give you the effects of the waves and things. And then once you've decided on the size of your cling film and you've got it all there ready and waiting, just put it to one side because you'll need to put this on immediately when it's still wet. So I'm just going to take it off and put it to one side now so I know that it's there and it's already waiting. So then we're going to mix the colours up that we're going to use for this scene here. And I'm going to mix up some cerulean blue, or you could use a Prussian blue or something like that. Nice bright blue colour. You can use whatever colours you want to really for this, as long as the sea matches the sky. And then I'm going to use some alizarin crimson, fairly strong with the alizarin crimson. And then some purple by mixing alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue to give me a purpley colour. And those are the colours we're going to use there. Now I could mask that boat out if I wanted to stop my paint running into it, but you should be able to work around it because it's a big solid shape. It doesn't matter so much about the hull of the boat. It's just we should be able to work around that. And where have I put my mark brush? There it is. So we're going to wet this paper all over. Just move that out of the way. We're going to wet this all over so it's staying nice and glossy wet up to the edge of the boat. Now don't wet the sails of the boat here, but you can go over the little man leaning out the boat there, and we're just going to wet that round here a little bit in the middle there, and so it's staying glossy wet. I'm using Bockingford paper. I think this is 300 gram weight. I usually like to use 425 gram weight, but it doesn't cockle quite so much as that. And just making sure this is all staying glossy wet all over. It doesn't matter if there's a little dry patch here and there, it'll just become a cloud or a wave or something like that. It doesn't matter about these little bits of brush that happen to fall off of it. Now I'm just moving my head around to see where this is drying out, where it's staying wet, and because it's only a 300 gram it tends to dry out a little bit more quickly, so I'm just making sure the bottom part here is staying wet because I can see little dry patches on there. It's one of the reasons we have it on a board, is so you can either move the board or move your head around to see where the paper's drying out and where it's staying wet, and also have your board slightly tilted as well so the paint will run down, so it tends to dry out at the top. Right, now that's staying wet, I can go for it. Biggish brush to paint with, something like a 12-14 round, and then we're going to go for it with these different patches of colours. I'm going to put some blue up the top here. Whenever you're doing watercolours, don't be frightened of leaving areas without paint on. You can actually leave some white bits into these things. So just think cloud shapes coming across here. So I'm going to leave a little bit of that white around there. While I've got that blue on the brush, I'm going to do some down the bottom here to give me the matching colour down the bottom here as well. Oh, that's going dry. Let's make sure that stays wet. Clean my brush. Into the next colour, some nice bright pinky colour. Why not have a bit of that into that as well. Up to the boat, stop at the edge of the boat and then flick it away, and then out the other side of the boat to give me some nice bits of colouring into this. Not into the blue particularly. It doesn't matter if you do go into the blue because it will just go a purple colour, but I'm making sure I go carefully around the edge of the boat. Oops, just overlapped it a little bit. So that the sails will stand out when we come to do them. Again, while I've got that colour on my brush, I'll put a bit of that into the water down here as well, so it matches the patterns as I'm putting up the top there, so it matches all the colours that I'm putting up the top. Let's bring that down a little bit. Should I put a bit of crimsony red in there as well? Why not? Oh, let's go for it. A bit of mad colour. Up to the edge of the boat, up to the edge of the boat. All this has got to go on while the paper's still wet. And then perhaps a little bit of the purpley colour. Just clean my brush into this purpley colour. Let's give some purpley clouds into that as well. Bit of purple. It's just whatever colours you fancy. Just stick to a couple of colours that will go together though. Don't go use all the colours out of your paint box. Some things which will harmonise together. Bit of the purpley reds, purpley colours down here. Whatever you do one side of a sail, make sure it comes out the other side to make it look like it's flowing through. Oh, it's a bit bonkers this one, but hey ho, it's just a bit of fun. And a bit onto the horizon here, into and around the boat. A little bit into and around the boat here at the other end. And perhaps just a bit more of the reds into that as well. A little bit in that part of the boat there. And then before this dries out, it's still wet there at the bottom, so just before this dries out, I'll get some of the cling film onto it so it all dries together. I think I'm just going to put a bit more paint down here because it is just starting to dry a little bit, so just putting a bit more paint on to make sure that bit stays wet, otherwise the cling film won't do anything. A little bit more purple just underneath that boat to give it a bit of a reflection into there. And then we can go for it. Where to put the cling film? There it is. Panic, panic, panic now, just to make sure I get this done at the same time. So we just want to put this cling film onto the bottom third really of the picture. And if I stretch it slightly longitudinally so it's going across, it should look like little waves and gives you lots of patterns and textures into it. And that's it. Just tap it down. Don't screw it up so it goes into like you're wrapping cheese up. It's just let it fall into its natural little creases and just encourage it, and then just tap it down. Nothing I can do now until it's dry, so I'm just going to have my cup of tea and watch paint dry for a minute or two. All right. Okay, this should be dry now. I've dried it with a hairdryer in the end to just speed up the drying process, but you have to be careful when you use a hairdryer that it doesn't blow the cling film off and you lose the patterning. So now we can take that off, and there we have the effect of the fuzzy clouds and the more structured sea with all the twirly shapes that you get into it as well. Make sure it is dry, so once you take the cling film off, dry it again with a hairdryer, because we need to just paint along this little edge here to put a little bit of background into it. We're just going to use the purpley colour or one of the dark colours that you've got there already, and just to make sure that the background sits onto the sea here, we just need to dampen the sea area just slightly with a clean brush and grubby water. Just dampen that just very, very gently with your brush there, and then you just paint onto the dry bit above it a little bit of a background distant shore or something like that, and then touch it into that water. So if you touch it into that water, it will just blur the bottom edge slightly. Just bring that along to that, make that boat there, and perhaps I'll do another little bit of a shore over this side just to make it blend in and match. So just flick some water over here, don't rub it too much, otherwise you'll lose that lovely patterning to it. And then bring up a little bit of a hillside this side as well, or a little bit of a distant headland or an island or something on there, just to make it look a little bit more like there's a horizon somewhere, and it will just blur into that bit of water and become part of the rest of the scenery. So that's those. So now we can just start working on the boat. If you've wobbled anywhere or you've gone over an edge slightly, if you just take your brush, wet it, and then just rub it along the bits where you've wobbled, and then dab with a clean bit of kitchen roll or tissue, it should just take anything out if you've wobbled over the edges there slightly. But we are going to put some shading on, so it should blend in with those anyway, but just tidy it up a little bit if you want to. Take that little bit off there, where it just wobbled on that edge where the water's wobbled a bit. And that should come out nice and clean then. So now we can just put a bit of shading into this. So I'm going to use I'm just put a little bit more blue into that purple, so it's a little bit more bluey rather than too purpley for this part. Ultramarine blue into that. And all I'm going to do with this is, with my slightly grubby water, it should be clean water really, is just wet the sail, just using this round brush now, not a mop brush. So just wetting that sail all over. Do one sail at a time, so you get some definition in between the two. And then just put in a few little creases and folds where the sail's billowing in the wind, just to give it a little bit of shaping. Use one of the colours that you've used in the background. And a little bit of a fold down here as well, as if the ropes are pulling it to the corner there. And just let that fade away. I'll do the same with the background one in a moment, but just let that dry out. Again, I've just wobbled over that edge, so just rub my brush along there and just take it out a bit. I'll do the same on the whole while that's drying. So we're just wetting that. Take that little bit out at the front. And just wet that hole. And then pick one of the colours that you've used in the picture already. Perhaps the bluey, darker bluey colour, or purpley colour perhaps. No, actually I think I might do this bright cerulean blue that we've got up here. Did I wet that hole? I can't remember now. I think I did. Let's just re-wet it just to make sure it stays wet. That's it, just stays wet along there, so I can just leave it lighter at the front and darker towards the back. I'm going to use this nice bright blue colour, leaving it light at the front edge, so it just fades up there, and then you get it stronger and darker towards the back. Just take a little bit of that out at the front, and then we get it nice and bright and strong and dark. A little bit stronger, darker blue towards the back here, to give that a bit of shape. This time avoiding that cling film. I'm just going to use a little bit of ultramarine blue or something just a little bit stronger and darker towards the back end of it, again to give it that bit of shaping along there. So by the time I've done that, this other sail should be dry, so I can put a little bit of shading into that one. Because it's behind the other one, it's in shadow. So I'm just going to dampen that and make this a bit darker. Again, just use the dark colours which I've already used in the picture straight away there. Put in the brush to take out any puddles. But perhaps want it a little bit lighter towards the top there. So take a bit of the paint back out again. That'll probably do for that. I'll just dry that again now, or just let it dry for a few moments. Take a smaller brush and put in some other little details. So while that little bit's drying there, I'll just put this little buoy. I've got a little buoy down here. Just a little bit of a round buoy. I've just put a grubby finger on my nice C there. It's a little cross or something on that. A couple of dashes into the water, and again try and lift out a little bit of a highlight on one side and just put a little bit of darker colour towards the bottom edge of that. Give it a bit of shaping. I'm just going to take out my green finger paint that I've just put on the water, which I didn't want, just off the side of my hand. With this boat here, I need to just put some of the colours that I put on the hull, just a couple of dashes into the water, just to give it a little bit of reflection there into that water just below the boat there, so it looks like it's coming in. And then all we've got to do is put on a little bit of the rigging, ultramarine blue and burnt umber, smallish brush. Oh, let's put a little man on there. You know, his little, otherwise the boat's doing its own thing and not a little bit of a life jacket on him, I suppose. And then some dark purpley blues and things for trousers and perhaps his hat or sou'wester or whatever it is that he's put a little cap on him. I think he's just got a very big head all of a sudden. Let's just take a little bit of that, put a little hat on him. And an arm coming out of there. You only want a couple of little blobs and you've got a little person. So just put on some little bits of the rigging here, just a few little bits of dark going across. A little bit of the masts and the ropes and things. And that will probably do.